Yo, what is up guys, and welcome to InfernoKun, back with another video talking about The Walking Dead, A New Frontier. Yeah, bringing it back to, off of the Season 4 topic. I do have some more planned for the future, but I want to go back and talk about what I thought was the most disappointing aspects of A New Frontier. Now, don't get me wrong, A New Frontier, it was pretty enjoyable a little bit, but there were some problems that really just stood out to me, and it wasn't the best that it could have been. So here are my 5 problems that I really had with A New Frontier, and generally what just made it disappointing for me as a very, very avid consumer of The Walking Dead. Very, very big fan. So number 5 goes to the death of either Tripp or Ava. This one was one of the worst deaths I've ever seen Telltale ever do, in terms of just the impact it had and just, the power behind it. So of course you go ahead and, either pick to either, save Tripp or Ava from being murdered by Joan. And then the old switcheroo happens where you save the person that you don't want to save. For me, I wanted to go ahead and save Ava because Tripp was a little bit annoying, and I was like, okay, that's pretty awesome. But then it happened. That wasn't a bad concept, okay? It was a pretty nice choice to have. But, immediately in episode 5, they go ahead and kill them off so fast in the most unsatisfying way possible, okay? Now, for Tripp, he falls off of the edge because of the, wing of the helicopter breaking, but Ava's was the worst, okay? Ava, she falls down after they go ahead and squeeze to the other side of the bridge, and Ava just gets knocked down by a walker, and it's like, oh, okay, that happened. And then David's meme of a line that says, she was a soldier for a second, and mourns for 1 second. Okay, let's go.
Ava sacrificed herself to save me. She was a fighter. Didn't take shit from anybody. You were lucky to have her.
It was a wasted potential for these two characters, and the death was just, not satisfying at all, and it was just like, oh, okay, that happened. Number 4 goes to the lack of character development. Now, I've always mentioned in other videos that I've made that A New Frontier has some interesting characters, but they weren't really fleshed out all too much. Tripp, Eleanor, Conrad, all of them, they had their initial development, like getting to know them at first, but after that there wasn't really much to them after, going on through the episodes. In episode 1, we got to really just know the characters, but then episode 2, 3, 4, and 5, we never really got to talk to them on a personal level and get to know more about them like we did in The Walking Dead Season 1 regarding people like Kenny. I can tell you all kinds of things about Kenny that I learned from him on a personal level. Characters like Lily, who was very well developed, and then Carly, all of them were well developed. But then in The New Frontier, the only people, this is like a little side point that I put as a little bonus, but it kind of adds to the fact, the only people to get just meaningful development were characters like David, Gabe, and Kate. And that's not bad, but you're overshadowing people outside of the family, okay? That's where the most important thing is, because in The Walking Dead Season 1, you didn't focus on Clementine, who was your quote-unquote family who you were taking care of. You also focused on people outside of the family, like Kenny, Lily, and all of them. They were all just given equal amount of time to develop these characters, and that's why I think Season 3 failed at, okay? It failed at trying to make me care about these characters a lot, because, Eleanor, I really liked her a lot, but she didn't really have much to her. And then Tripp as well, all of them, they were just really disappointing characters that didn't have much development, and that was very disappointing to me as someone who thinks that characters make or break a Telltale game. Moving on to number 3, we have Clementine playable only in the flashbacks. Now, we did know that she would only be playable in the flashbacks because of what they told us, but nevertheless it made Season 3 disappointing, because Clementine, we've been with her in Season 1 as an NPC, and then in Season 2 we're finally able to play as Clementine as the main protagonist, and now Clementine was just reduced back to an NPC. And the reason why it was disappointing was because our choices we made as Clementine in Season 2 they were kind of wiped away. She had a whole different personality that we weren't really able to control. She was just so angsty, edgy, and very angry all the time. And not being able to influence her just made me go like, what is happening to my Clementine? I just wanted her to be, I wanted to control her and, have the things that she says shape her by what, I pick in the choices. And having her only playable in the flashbacks really just made me want more of her as a playable character, because those flashbacks were a small little bit of the puzzle. And having her reduced to an NPC in the main story, but also just have her reduced to only a flashback character, really limited the, story of A New Frontier in terms of just Clementine's plot in the story. It was like a whole different subplot that was just made for season 4, which isn't a bad thing. I just think that season 3 kind of suffered from having Clementine being only playable in the flashbacks. So what do you guys think about that? That was a huge problem that I saw in the community quite a lot that wasn't really addressed too often. And Clementine being just forced into an NPC was really disappointing for me, at least, because I wanted to, take control of Clementine, shape her into what I wanted her to be, and just have control over her character that I didn't have. So there goes that one, the disappointment of having Clementine reduced only to an NPC / flashback protagonist. Number 2 goes to a big one that was said throughout the development of the first 2 episodes of A New Frontier, and that being the 42 different Clementine starting points. Now, in the initial, of course, the wave until the release of season 3, we got information that there will be 42 different Clementines depending on your choices that were made in season 1 and season 2. There also was said that there will be 42 different starting points, okay? So that wasn't really, they stretched the truth quite a lot there, okay? They didn't really lie to us, but they stretched the truth quite vigorously, and that made it very disappointing for me, at least, okay? So looking back at what they did, okay, so there are 42 different traits for Clementine, okay? So you can actually get different traits, but those traits don't actually transfer into the story and affect the choices or the dialogue too often. I believe it might have affected one dialogue option, but other than that, it wasn't really a different starting point. You really only start off in, Wellington, or, with Kenny, or the alone ending, or then with Jane, or Jane without the family. That's just around like 5 or 6 starting points, really, not 42. There are 42 Clementines, but those Clementines, they don't affect the story. They don't affect the choices. They don't affect dialogue in every single situation. There aren't 42 different Clementines. They pretty much just all are the same. She acts the same way in everyone's game, and that was a huge letdown, okay? For me, I wasn't really expecting 42 different scenarios in the game, because I thought that's way too ambitious for Telltale. That has to be a lie or a stretch of the truth. And of course we were right about that, but I wasn't really expecting too much from that. So yeah, it was disappointing to see that they actually told us that. I would have preferred them to leave that out and be like, hey, your Clementine will have a little Sims trait. You know how you play the Sims and you have a little, jack of all trades. That's essentially what it is, okay? It's not nothing more than that, except the Sims actually kind of affects the gameplay. But other than that, hey, it wasn't really in season 3, and that made it a disappointment for me. The number 1 disappointment of season 3, you guys know what it is: the death of Jane or Kenny. Let's go ahead and start with Kenny, because this one was kind of one that bothered me quite a lot, to be honest. I know, for me at least, I shot Kenny, so he wasn't really in my game, but seeing this made me realize that, hey, they want to get rid of these characters so bad in any way possible, okay? So Kenny, the way he went out was, Of course, Clementine driving the car. She gets into a little swerve accident, and Kenny ends up being flung out of the car and basically getting paralyzed. Okay, so to me, that's the most stupid death I have ever seen. I know I said Ava and Tripp's were stupid, but this one's number one. Okay, this one was the stupidest death I've ever seen in The Walking Dead. Period. Okay, getting swamped, getting thrown out of a car, and paralyzed, and just being defenseless and just dying. That's not really a heroic death. That's a sad, pitiful death, okay? Kenny deserved, I know I shot Kenny, but of course, I didn't want him to at least die the way he did in A New Frontier, at least, okay? In A New Frontier, that was just pitiful, okay? He deserved a better death than that. It wasn't really heroic because he didn't really give his life for AJ, because AJ was safe in the car. Clem could have just went ahead and, went to the car, grabbed AJ and gone away. He didn't really sacrifice himself. He was just a sitting duck who really had no opportunity to live because of his condition that he was, immediately placed in. So initially, it wasn't really a heroic death. It was just a sad, pitiful death. And I'm not blaming him for it. I'm blaming Telltale and the writers for the way they went ahead and done this. For me, at least, I think Kenny should have gone out the way he did. If he was to go out in season 3 at that flashback, he should have went out the way he did in The Walking Dead season 1, where he went ahead and just, tried to kill all the walkers around Ben. That's a more heroic way for Kenny to go out, in my opinion. And having this happen in A New Frontier was just, not very good. It was very unsatisfying and just, honestly, just doesn't fit The Walking Dead. It kind of was just thrown in there just to kill him. Now, moving on to Jane. There's not much to say about Jane, to be honest. She went ahead and just hung herself because of her being pregnant with, of course, Luke's baby, and the burden of having to just put that on Clementine while she has AJ just kind of made her a hypocrite, and I guess she couldn't handle it and decided to go ahead and kill herself. There's a lot more to that, there's a lot of backstory to that death, more than Kenny's death, to be honest, but still, it was very disappointing to me as a Jane fan to just see her just immediately go to hang herself. It was, I don't want to say it was out of character. It kind of was, to be honest, but her being a huge avid survivalist, it was kind of a bit out of character. And she just hung herself, just put her into a different perspective that she's a selfish person that just looking out for herself. But you can consider it to be a very selfless act because she went ahead and took that burden of having another baby in the apocalypse away from Clementine by killing herself. So those deaths were just they felt like they were improvised. Like, how can we kill off these two characters? We want them dead. We can't handle the season with them in it. We have to kill them. And honestly, the deaths of both Kenny and Jane felt like they were just, really just easy budget deaths, okay? Allocating a lot of resources to, a big fight or something like that would just be a lot to it, all the gunshots and maybe even walkers and everything else, animations, just for a flashback, wouldn't really be the best use of resources for these characters that you didn't really want to keep around all too long. Yeah, in the Wellington ending, we did have, gunshots and stuff at Wellington, but, other than that, having to kill off Jane and Kenny in that way, it just felt very rushed, very, budgeted, because, you could tell by the models of both Jane and Kenny that they were very, very early on models that weren't really too detailed, and that really affected, how we viewed that scene. They were very rushed, they were very budgeted, and, other than that, that was the most disappointing thing about The Walking Dead: A New Frontier. So, honestly, that is my list for the top 5 most disappointing things about The Walking Dead: A New Frontier. If you guys have your own, comment down below and tell me them. I want to see what you guys thought about A New Frontier as well. And hey, This video is very negative, but hey, A New Frontier wasn't all too bad. I think the action scenes were pretty great, and the choices were actually not that bad as well. So A New Frontier did have some things, but I feel like the negativities of the episode kind of outweighed most of the greatness that it had to show. So these are my top 5 disappointments. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys did enjoy, go ahead and leave me a thumbs up and subscribe for more Walking Dead content on the channel. Go ahead and check out my Discord in the description box below. You also saw it, in the video somewhere. But hey, that's pretty much it from me. Subscribe, like, and all that greatness. Comment down below, and I'll catch you guys next time on The Walking Dead.